come back. Nigel used many tactics, strategies, I guess, is a way of describing them, in order to try and preserve yours and Amanda's safety.
Yep.
One of the decisions that you made very early in your captivity was the decision to convert to Islam. Tell me about where your head was at when you made that decision, because it's not something that you could be taking lightly. In fact, it would be crucial that you didn't take that lightly.
No, not at all. It wasn't really something that we got to choose.
So it became obvious that this could be something that could potentially keep you alive.
Oh, certainly. Look, as a survival strategy, certainly becoming Muslim may have helped. Well, for me, I thought it may have actually given us preferential treatment. But the reason to convert to Islam was not something that we sort of said, oh, well, let's just convert to Islam. One of the head guys had come in on several occasions and basically said, you know, if to become Muslim is the best thing that you can do, because if you're Muslim, we can't actually hurt you and we can't kill you. If you don't become Muslim, then the likelihood is what will happen is we'll get a ransom and then we'll execute you. But to become Muslim, it has to come from your heart. So we'd actually asked for English versions of the Quran within the first 3 or 4 days, I think it was. So for me, that was, I had very little understanding of Islamic culture or Islamic religion. So I guess for me, it was like, I need to learn basically on the fly here about what these people are about, and by learning some of their religion might give me some understanding of why they were doing what they were doing.
Something to break down the barriers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Look, I needed them to see me as a human being.
Yeah.
That's why right at the start with the young guys whose job it was to sort of take care of us or feed us, when they would come into the room, trying to create conversation with them, trying to humanise myself with them. So asking them about, you know, their aspirations and what sports they play and that sort of thing was important for me to really get to know them. And as time went on, obviously, look, I don't want to say manipulate, but obviously used relationships so that I got things. So sort of, you know, something like a pencil that seems so insignificant became the most powerful tool for me, because it did allow me to draw or to write notes or to keep a diary, especially for the last 11 months, keeping a secret diary.
It must have been a scary process the first time you knelt down to pray.
Oh, incredibly. I didn't understand what I was saying. So they, obviously the profession of faith, which you have to say before you become, well, before conversion, and then having to do the complete ablution of the body, wash yourself, and then sitting down, well, you know, doing the whole process of praying with all these other guys that were in the room, and then when we finished, everyone's high-fiving each other and hugging us, and then we're given a Muslim name. So mine was Muhammad to start off with, but I think after about 10 days I said, can I change it to something that at least starts with an N? Because they would walk into the room and say Muhammad, 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 and I just wouldn't acknowledge them at all, because I guess for 36 years being called Nigel, when someone suddenly calls you Muhammad, you just didn't register. So I asked to change my name to Noah, which was obviously a little bit closer to Nigel. But yeah, look, the whole thing with the conversion as well, it wasn't until probably after the escape when I was given my Quran back, when I really started to read that in fine detail, and read the Quran, I don't know, 100 times, to get I have a greater knowledge of Islam than I do Christianity or Buddhism or anything like that. But yeah, look, when I first did it, felt like such a farce, but it was, and I've sort of described this in the book, how Amanda had basically come back from her time outside and said, oh, I've told them we're converting, and we'd talked about it, we hadn't agreed on it. So that sort of decision was then taken out of my hands, and I said, well, hang on, this is a game we are about to start playing, and I don't know whether I can play this game for however long it's going to take. Because once you convert, to then not have belief basically means they have the right to execute you.
Absolutely,
So I was like, this is a bluff. I'm not a religious person, and can I continue this bluff? How long can I continue this bluff?
You still regard yourself as not a religious person?
I would say I'm an incredibly spiritual person, definitely, especially after the experience of being held captive.
And do you walk away from that part of the experience, converting to Islam? Do you still retain some of that?
No, look, I still look. It's something I wish they had have taught me more of, especially the Arabic. I would have been nice to come away with being able to speak a second language after 15 months, but they said it was too hard for them as not very well. They obviously weren't fantastic at English, but I hammered them constantly. It's, even showing them ayahs in the Quran saying, it is your duty to teach someone if they ask.
And that's one of the things that struck me, is that you actually made sure that your captives knew that they had obligations to you, and you were going to hold them to them in many ways.
Oh yeah, for sure. To a point where I sort of walked a very fine line of saying, if they didn't, then they were not Muslim. But that was a very treacherous line to walk, because to basically accuse someone of not being Muslim when they are is a bit of a no-no as well.
Well, I got the impression that you really needed to maintain your humanity in their eyes as well, and stick up for yourself to show that you weren't going to allow yourself to be constantly battered down emotionally and spiritually and physically.
Yeah, look, especially after the escape, that was, when, it's funny, I sort of describe it, the first 5 months when we had small privileges, like being able to go outside for 15 minutes twice a day, and being able to decide when I went to the toilet, to after the escape being shackled, and every single privilege that we had, even the ability to exercise or to stand up, was taken away. For me, it was like, I have to be incredibly strong here if I'm going to come out of this, which I basically said to myself, I have to come home, because if I don't, it's going to destroy my family.
So we're 4 or 5 months in, and you've discovered that it is possible to loosen the bars in the bathroom, and you think that there's an opportunity maybe to escape. Tell me about that, about the conversation that you and Amanda had, and what your plans were, and how you thought it might go down. Was it a whim? I think we can do this, we better take the opportunity now.
It's funny, like looking back when we decided to escape, and Amanda was desperate to get out of the house. From the moment that we were separated, after the 2-month mark, we were sort of on different tracks. And I think that was because my family had offered $25,000 up front. So I was getting I was getting preferential treatment, if you want to call it that. So she had been, I'd got a note from Amanda saying that she'd been getting unwanted visitors. So I sort of assumed that she was being sexually assaulted, and she'd had a fake assassination attempt done on her. So she was pretty desperate to get out. So we talked about the possibility of escape. We didn't want to ever do it without Abdi and our 2 drivers, because we knew if we went and they were still there, then the likelihood would them ending up dead. And I just said to Amanda, I can't have their blood on my hands. So we obviously looked at the escape possibilities, and I had obviously seen the window in the bathroom, and that was our opportunity to get out once I removed 2 of the bars. Look, not much planning went into it per se, but it was like, we're basically going to get outside of this house. We have no idea what's...
And do a run for it, make a run for it.
And do a run for it, yeah. So we had planned to go at 7:30 after final prayer. The first plan was obviously trying to hot-tail it to the international airport, which we knew was sort of 10-15 kilometres away, because it was sitting in the courtyard and watching planes sort of fly in and how low they were, making it a guesstimate. And then it was like, well, hang on, how are we going to navigate at night? So then we changed the plan again to basically just trying to get a couple of kilometres away, and then trying to find someone that we thought we could trust and that would hide us in their house.
Because you're still in Mogadishu.
Yeah, we're in the north of Mogadishu at this stage. We're in probably the wildest part of Mogadishu. So that night, obviously, get the bars out, get the bricks out, get Amanda up. She can't actually fit out the hole. because I needed to remove one more bar, so send her back, put this jigsaw puzzle back together, and then the next morning go in, remove the bar, now know that we can get out. And I actually changed the plan. So I say to Amanda, instead of basically doing it at night time, why don't we go right on midday prayer and go to a mosque? We're Muslim, people will try and protect us. So she agreed. I wanted to leave it until the following day, which was going to be a Friday. Obviously the holiest day in Islam. Know that there's going to be an imam there. Amanda panics, or is panicking, and says, no, let's go in case they move us tonight. So we decide to do it on the Thursday at midday. And probably 20 minutes before we leave, at this stage Amanda and I were communicating through our external windows, just sort of whispering to each other. And we had a knock code to bring each other to the window, so I brought Amanda to the window and just said, look, you realise the likelihood of us being killed today is incredibly high, because we have no idea what's on the other side of that wall. We're in a capital city that is basically in war. So they see a couple of white people running down the street, we could easily get shot within 30 seconds. And I said, do you still want to do this? And she said, yeah, I still want to do this. And she asked me the same thing. And I said, yeah, I still want to do this. Like, if I'm going to die, it's going to be on my terms. So I'm actually going to get to decide. Where I thought I thought, look, I actually thought we weren't going to come out. So I thought if we're actually going to die...
just throw caution to the wind and give it a try, and if it doesn't work, well, so be it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, both go into the bathroom, remove the bars. Amanda slips down the other side of the wall. I then try and get through. Realise that I can't fit and have to go head first, and nearly fall from sort of 6 foot back onto the ground. Get out. I guess just a rush of adrenaline, absolutely pumping through my blood, exhilarated. You know, it's almost
hot, dusty, 40 degrees.
Obviously dusty. Look, it's weird. Like, I sort of explain it like my brain went to cotton wool. Throw on my shoes and must have this grin on my face, and Amanda's like, someone's already spotted us. The next door neighbour's kid, and we just start legging it. Don't even know where we're running to. And I pass Amanda racing down the street, run up towards a woman with her shopping. She drops that and screams and starts running away from us in the same sort of direction we're going. Leg it past her, get to a T intersection, look to my right, see the minaret of the mosque, and body turns left. Like, my brain's obviously completely switched off. Because I see the bitumen road, and I know that down on the main road is where the market area is. Get down there, or get about halfway down, and then my body just turns around and I start running back towards the mosque, past Amanda. And she looks a bit bewildered, sort of says, what are you doing? And then start running towards the mosque, pick up it's actually our next door neighbour, who is then at the T intersection. He speaks English and he says, do you need help? And both of us grab him and say to him, take us to the mosque. And he basically says, well, it's right there, and we just run. And just as we enter, warning shot goes off behind us. So unbeknownst to us, 2 of our young guys are literally 10 seconds behind us with AK-47s.
Oh, wow. So how do they receive you into the mosque? Obviously, you're going in saying we are Muslim.
Look...
we've been kidnapped, we've been held hostage here.
Yeah, explain that to them. So look, it was pandemonium. Because people are in there praying, and I've run in and explained that we're in Somalia, that we're both Muslim and that we need help, and find a couple of older guys that speak English, and they actually protect us. They take the young guys who have come in with the guns and they push them up against a side wall and then put us into the pulpit of the mosque and call on an imam. They say, you're just going to have to wait 15 minutes, he'll come, he'll interview you. If you are in fact Muslim, like you're saying, then you're going to be safe. We'll make sure that you get out of here. Unfortunately, he doesn't rock up in time. And our head guys come back, drag Amanda off my side. They take her outside. I obviously can't see her at this stage, but hear a single gunshot, and all I can think is, right, she's just been executed. And 10, 15 seconds later, they come back for me.
Where's your head at that stage? You ready to give it up?
Yeah, look, definitely, like, get hit a couple of times with a pistol and punched and kicked on the floor, and had resigned myself to the fact that, okay, this is the day I check out. This is it. And was incredibly calm. That's the strange thing. I think I always find it weird that, especially after that experience, that human beings are terrified of death, but we're all going to die at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I'd sort of resigned myself and was incredibly calm. That was the bizarre thing. It was like, right out, I'm literally got a minute left in my life and then I'm dead.
And yet that's not what happened. They took you
No.
back to the house and locked you up, and you spent the next 8, 9, 10 months.
10.5 months.
Yeah.
In shackles like an animal. Treated.
Because the treatment pretty much continued to get worse over the next period, didn't it?
Yeah, look, and that started from the day after the escape.
Yeah.
Like, we were interrogated the day we escaped, and then the next day, obviously, being blindfolded and stripped naked and having a gun put to my head and cocked.
Yep.
So that sort of stuff and then the mental torture and sleep deprivation and starvation and all that sort of stuff that they use to sort of control us.
How do you keep your head together? How do you stay in a frame of mind that actually allows you to keep living every day? What's your thought process when you wake up in the morning?
Well, it was, Shaun, it was weird, I guess. After the escape, I was dead, like I was empty.
Yeah.
So I used sleep as a mechanism, and what I actually would do was sleep during the day and then stay awake at night, because they would come in during the night with torches and guns, and so I would basically sleep right up until midday prayer, and then, for the next 6 hours, that was all I had to entertain myself for.
Yep.
And then I could basically lay on my cot again and pretend that I was asleep. And that went on for, I don't know, probably a month or so, and then it was quite self-defeatist to have that mentality, and then it was just like, right, I have to start putting together a routine. And that sort of evolved. Every house I had a different sort of routine. Like, in one house I started drawing and designing houses when I was able to get a pencil and a piece of paper. And that became like an obsessive compulsive behaviour for me, where I would spend 11 hours a day drawing in minute detail.
And you try and find something to immerse yourself in completely, to allow yourself to get out of your situation.
Oh, for sure. And it was weird, like, my dreams were incredibly vivid, and it used to be torturous. Like, you'd come out of a dream and my dreams were like, I'm going to go and meet friends for a barbecue tonight, and then would come awake and then realise I'm surrounded by those four walls and that door and a coach.
It was a dream.
It was a dream.
Yeah.
So it was about routine. Towards the end it was like, I just have to get through the next 12 hours, 14 hours of this day. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. I've got to be here, right here and now, and I've just got to get through. Even got to a point where I broke it down into between the calls of prayer. So waking up at 4:30, praying, go back to sleep for a few hours, and then it's like, I've just got to make it to midday. And then I've just got to make it to 3:30, and then I've just got to make it to 5:30, and I've just got to make it to 7:30. And after the sort of 5:30 prayer, it was like, I'm on the downhill run. Yeah. I can go back to sleep shortly. I can let my subconscious take me away from here.
Ultimately, you were released. After the break, we'll find out what it's like to actually be released after 15 months in captivity.